In what seems like it is becoming an annual tradition at this point, I recently went on a trip to Japan, and while I was there, I of course looked at a lot of watches. In Tokyo, I went to Nakano Broadway for expensive pieces, and expensive vintage pieces. But where my heart truly lies is in Bookoff, a second-hand chain with locations all around Japan. This time though, things are a bit different. Welcome to Addicted to Watches. Today, we're going on a trip back to the city of Nagoya in Japan, back to a Bookoff I've visited in previous videos as well as another extra location. The reason for the extra location? Well, to be honest, things aren't what they used to be. During my time in Japan, I visited more than a few second-hand shops, and, at least from what I personally saw at all of them, things are a lot worse than they used to be. As we'll see soon, where cabinets were previously full of interesting, well-priced watches, now they're a bit more sparse and, while perhaps not overpriced, don't contain the bargains they used to. My flight landed in Tokyo, where I spent the first day before heading off to Nagoya. But I spent that day in everyone's favourite watch hub, Nakano Broadway. Here I saw quite a few interesting watches at places like Jack Road, where I've filmed a video before, as well as other new, second-hand and vintage shops. Plenty of Rolex of course, but I was a bit more interested in these Omegas, and in particular, this Grand Seiko with a rich red dial. I was also lucky enough to spot this SBGD202 in another shop, featuring an 18-karat rose gold case, 8-day spring drive movement, and stardust dial that mimics the night sky. It was fun window shopping, but I wanted to do some actual shopping. So, the first stop on our trip today is the Bookoff Super Bazaar located in Sakae. Since previous videos got hundreds of comments asking where it was, even though I specifically mentioned the location in those videos too, here it is, right in the city, in Nagoya up on the 8th floor. In this first cabinet here, we start off with some Hamiltons, including this one here with an inner rotating bezel, as well as this white dialed khaki field. If only it came on the bracelet. Below those are some older Longines quartz models. I don't mind that small seconds in gold there, but the price was a little bit high. Next to those are the last of the Hamiltons from up above. Down further, we get to some Oris watches, such as this Aquis on a rubber strap. Along here, there are a couple of others, and that one on the end is quite nice too. I wasn't expecting to see anything like this rotary, but it was pretty interesting. In the case below there is this very nice looking The Citizen model with a fairly hefty price tag, plus another Oris and two more Hamiltons hiding down there. I also almost missed this Blancpain hiding down the end. Not quite my style though. On to the next group and we've got some Seiko. That first one is one of the very early generation Samurais with a titanium case and no Prospex logo on the dial. Next to that was this very cool SUS model with a 4S15 movement from the early 2000s. They've released these in more recent times with quartz movements. Lastly up there is one of the 5 sports models, and directly beneath that a Brights model looking very busy and complicated. Moving on, we have this dressier mechanical chronograph, and a more simple dress watch. On the row below is a quartz Grand Seiko from before the brands separated. Also on this row is another Brights model, but this is one of the rarer ones, hence the higher price. On the bottom row here is a Marine Master tuner, and this Helly Hansen model that I think was actually here last time when I visited as well. Some more Seiko in this next cabinet, and below that lady's watch is a Sari 149. Next to that is actually one of those re-releases of the SUS model I mentioned earlier. I think that is the full lume dial version. Last one here is one of the Giugiaro limited editions with the tilted dial. That one is a decent price actually. Beneath that is a small ladies' Creedor for not much, and a seemingly random collection of a few other Seiko models. Finishing off with this 5 Sports. The next cabinet starts off with the Citizen NB1050, a model I've been on the lookout for, but this price was a little bit too high for me. Also along the top row are a few different EcoDrive models. Some of the reflections make the autofocus play up a little here, unfortunately. Down the end is a pretty bright green ProMaster diver. A fairly basic looking quartz model down below is followed by a few different radio controlled watches, with different amounts of busyness on the dial. Last on this row is an Exceed model that is simple but well done. On the next row down here there are mostly ladies models, and nothing really stood out to me. Further down, and there's this ProMaster from a range that I've seen becoming more and more popular. Next to that is another EcoDrive, and finally there's this Campanola, a line from Citizen's higher end collections. It definitely looks like there's a lot going on, and the price is getting up there as well. When we move to the cabinet underneath, we're entering Casio territory, with some models I haven't really seen before, and an edifice on the end there. Beneath are a few Oceanus models, followed by a couple of Protreks. Along the bottom here there are a few baby Gs, but they're just a teaser of the regular G-Shocks coming up next. And here we are. I won't pretend to know that much about the whole range of G-Shocks available. I like the Square 5600 and have a Casio, but beyond that I'm not too sure. So, for those G-Shock enthusiasts out there, I'll just be quiet at this part and let you have a look in peace. So, that was Sakae. There are some okay and interesting watches there, but if you look at my last video from early 2024, it's like a wasteland now. At the time, there were easily more than 200 watches in the cases, which were much more densely packed. I didn't end up buying anything there, so I figured I'd head to another location and try my luck instead. That location is in Nagoya Minato, a little south of the main city area. I used to check this location every so often back when I was living in Japan, and it too usually had some interesting watches to check out. Unfortunately, this location was disappointing in their offerings as well. In this first cabinet here, this Longines caught my eye, and the price is pretty reasonable. I haven't come across this particular model before. Beneath is a Victorinox, and this little quartz Hamilton that is actually pretty cheap, but has a very short bracelet, which is probably why the price was so low. Moving on, and there are a couple of ladies' watches, but if we move below them, there are a couple of D1 Milanos, though they're not my cup of tea. Up next is the Seiko cabinet, and a couple of ladies' Creedors to kick us off, as well as some Wired, a budget brand from Seiko. Interestingly, here there is another of the original SUS watches, this time with a black dial and similar asking price. Another watch with a 4S movement is this red GMT that you don't see every day. After that are a couple of solar divers, including this black and gold tuner. Moving on, we come to this blue Flightmaster for a decent price, followed by some ladies' pieces, Radio Wave, and Dolce models. In the cabinet below that are these Astron models, though they are the bigger and busier variety, which I'm not so keen on. The last one along here is this Marine Master 300, which looks pretty nice. And finally, on the row below, an older quartz Grand Seiko. It might be a little bit hard to see, but it had a finely textured dial as well. Moving on, this case contains a variety of Citizen watches. As a brand, Citizen has been growing on me in recent times, but I can't say there was anything that stood out here to me. Some of these were a bit too busy for me. This bottom row finishes off with some ladies' watches, before moving down to the case below with a couple of very striking, but slightly less affordable Oceanus models. Like Astron, I prefer the more simple models with less going on the dial. Finally, we come to the G-Shock cabinet. This time around they actually had new rather than second-hand ones for sale here. Again, I'll let you watch here as I don't really know a whole lot about what to point out. Down below, there are also some regular Casio and other cheap watches if you really feel the need to buy something. One other standout I picked out from the other cases was this Bertucci in titanium. I've seen videos here on YouTube about the brand, but this was my first time seeing one in the flesh. One last spot was this Speedmaster with a striking blue dial and steel bezel combination. The price seems okay, but I'm not too familiar with Speedy pricing and model variations, so could be wrong. There you have it. There definitely were a couple of interesting watches I came across, and some of the prices were reasonable, but if you go back and compare it to my previous videos at Bookoff, you can see pretty clearly how it's changed. I think the main reason for that is probably due to the influx of tourists that Japan has received, especially in recent times when the exchange rate has gone down so dramatically. I am aware of the irony that I'm exactly part of the problem I'm describing here, don't worry. I have to admit I was a bit disappointed, and I think this is the first trip I've done where I didn't end up buying a watch from Bookoff. That's not to say I didn't buy any watches in Japan. I picked up one from a small Kyoto-based brand. No, it's not Kuoe, like you were probably thinking, though it does have a similar look. It's this Nis, or Nisu, if you use the Japanese pronunciation. I had a pretty specific criteria for a field watch, and this one fit the bill. I've been enjoying wearing it so far, so if you want to see a full review of this one, keep an eye out in the near future. What do you think about the current situation? Am I being overly dramatic and exaggerating things? Would you have picked up any of the watches we saw? What's been your best pickup in Japan? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time.